The Russian economy is taking a hit from U.S. and European imposed sanctions.
Trading on the Moscow Stock Exchange is closed until March 5th after the value of the ruble tanked on Monday. More than 5,000 demonstrators have been arrested in Russia since the start of the conflict last week. And a Russian-language petition to end the invasion has more than 1 million signatures.
Meanwhile, ambassadors and diplomats staged a walkout during a UN Human Rights Council meeting today when the Russian foreign minister started to give a speech. Joining us now from Moscow is CBS News reporter Mary Ilyushina. Mary, thanks for being with us. You know, of course, much of the world is reacting strongly with anger to this invasion, including many Russian people themselves. But just today, Russian forces upped their attacks on two of Ukraine's major cities, while at the same time, ordinary Russians are beginning to feel the effects of these financial sanctions with the collapse of the ruble. So how is all of this shaping public perception there in Russia?
Well, the public is definitely shocked. I think they're just as shocked as the Ukrainians were that Vladimir Putin went ahead with this invasion, because a lot of people felt like, it could be saber rattling, and Russian officials are known to, say a lot of big words against the West, but they were not expecting this major military offensive going on here in Ukraine. So there's definitely a lot of movement to try and, speak out against the war, because a lot of Russians have cultural ties, family ties with Ukraine. They're, friends and family that lives in Ukraine and lives in Russia, and some of these people have not been able to see each other for years, and it's not clear when they will be able to see each other again. Plus, the economic toll and sort of the way that the average life here might change after these crippling sanctions that, keep coming in. That is also, a lot of people are asking, like, is it all worth it? Like, is it all worth losing what we have economically and just our routine lives that they're used to over this invasion?
To that point, Western companies like Shell and General Motors plan to end or freeze their dealings with Russia. And the prime minister there in Russia announced steps today to stop this exodus. First and foremost, what are those steps, rather? And what more are you hearing from people on the ground? As you mentioned, just wondering if it's all worth it. But what more are you hearing from people on the ground in reference to how confident they are in the government's response as a whole?
Yeah, Prime Minister Mishustin today came out with a speech saying that Russian government is preparing a draft that will basically cut foreign investors' ability to drop Russian assets. They want to keep foreign investors invested in Russia, and he explained it that is done so these investors are not under political pressure, but think sort of reasonably and economically. We're not so far clear what exactly that will involve and how Russia intends to sort of force these investors to stay in the country, but he sort of alluded to possible concessions or any sort of tax havens for foreign investors who are willing to invest in the country. And he said, it's always easy to exit the market, but he says he hopes that the sanctions will stop at some point, at least stop coming in terms of new sanctions, and the economy will sort of stabilize itself. But, to your point about how Russians feel about these guarantees and these promises, today, there's massive lines at the ATMs. People are trying to get dollars and sometimes euros, rubles out of their accounts. A lot of banks sort of stopped giving currency out, and you have to order it in advance, and it might take weeks for people to actually be able to receive their funds. So they're definitely not so trustworthy and so hopeful as Mishustin is, and they're trying to sort of save their money. And for a lot of Russians here, this is sort of traumatizing because they've experienced that multiple times. There was this massive default in the end of 90s. After 2014, there was massive panic after Russia annexed Crimea. A lot of ruble obviously dropped there, and today it continues to drop. Today it's historic lows, but back then in 2014 there was huge panic just what's going to happen with the Russian economy. And people are, some of the people are saying we can't just do this one more time. We can't go through this again. Our life savings are being wiped out once again.
Yeah, and this feels different because there's so much support from the United Nations and other countries, Italy even today coming out against Russia in ways that we hadn't seen because they have a relationship and have for a long time. Mary Ilyushina, thank you so much for your reporting in Moscow.